Have you ever stopped to think about how much a Big Mac cost the first time you bought one? For many Americans, the answer brings back memories of a very different time. Gas was well under $1 a gallon. A brand new car could be purchased for just a few $1,000s. Families gathered around the television each evening, and a trip to McDonald's was something special. Back then, a Big Mac cost just 45 cents. Today, that same sandwich costs nearly $6 in many parts of the United States. But this story isn't really about hamburgers. It's about America, about inflation, rising wages, changing lifestyles, and how our country has evolved over nearly 6 decades. So let's take a journey through time. 1967, a sandwich is born. Most people assume the Big Mac was invented at McDonald's corporate headquarters. It wasn't. The famous sandwich was created by Jim Delegati, a McDonald's franchise owner in Western Pennsylvania, who believed customers wanted something bigger than the standard hamburger. 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, all on a sesame seed bun. It became a local favorite so quickly that McDonald's took it nationwide in 1968. Its price, 45 cents. To younger generations, that sounds unbelievable, but back then, 45 cents actually bought something. A gallon of gasoline cost around 33 cents. A movie ticket cost little more than $1. The average new home sold for less than $25,000. Most families shared one television. Children played outside until sunset, and a visit to McDonald's was often a family outing, not just a quick stop between errands. The 1970s, inflation arrives. The Vietnam War continued. The oil crisis changed daily life. Gas lines stretched around city blocks, and inflation became a word every American household learned to recognize. Restaurant prices rose right along with everything else. By 1970, the average Big Mac sold for about 55 cents. 5 years later, it had climbed to around 65 cents. Not much by today's standards, but people noticed. "Seems like everything costs more than it used to," became a phrase heard in kitchens across the country. By 1980, the Big Mac crossed a milestone that felt significant at the time. It cost about $1. The dollar simply didn't buy what it once had. Still, McDonald's remained one of the most affordable places for a family to eat together. Happy Meal toys, teenagers gathering after school, road trips that always seemed to include a stop beneath the golden arches. The 1980s and 90s, steady climb, steady comfort. By 1985, the average Big Mac cost around $1.60. It's funny, every generation believes today's prices are unusually high. The truth is, nearly every generation has felt exactly the same way. One reason McDonald's kept prices relatively low was sheer size. The company bought beef, potatoes, bread, cheese, and vegetables in such enormous quantities that it could negotiate prices smaller chains simply couldn't match. Then came the 1990s, a decade of optimism. The Cold War had ended. Personal computers were showing up in homes, and the internet was beginning to connect people in ways no one had imagined. Around 1990, the average Big Mac cost about $2.20. By the end of the decade, it hovered near $2.50. Even as prices rose, McDonald's stayed one of the best values in fast food. The menu was simple, service was quick, and families knew exactly what to expect, no matter where they traveled. Whether you were driving Route 66 or stopping for lunch after church on Sunday, you knew what that first bite would taste like. Cars changed, televisions changed, neighborhoods changed. Somehow, the Big Mac stayed familiar. The 2000s, a new century, new challenges. The year 2000 brought new technology and Y2K worries that, thankfully, came to nothing. The average Big Mac was about $2.50, and with wages rising, that seemed reasonable. Then September 11, 2001, changed the country. It had little direct effect on the price of a hamburger, but it reshaped the economy in countless ways. Businesses grew cautious. Travel slowed. Yet McDonald's remained a familiar stop for millions of families. Life changed, but some routines stayed the same. By the middle of the decade, the average Big Mac cost just over $3. Every link in the supply chain, feed, fuel, electricity, wages, had grown more expensive, and each small increase eventually showed up on the menu board. 2008, a financial crisis and an unlikely economic tool. Few Americans will forget the 2008 financial crisis. Home values dropped, banks failed, and millions lost jobs. Many expected restaurant prices to fall. Instead, McDonald's leaned into value meals and dollar menu promotions, offering families an affordable night out during hard times. By 2010, the average Big Mac cost around $3.70. Here's a fact that surprises a lot of people. Economists had already been using the Big Mac to compare currencies for over 20 years by this point. Back in 1986, The Economist magazine introduced the Big Mac Index as a lighthearted way to measure purchasing power around the world. Since McDonald's sells nearly the same sandwich in dozens of countries, comparing its price from place to place gives a rough sense of whether a currency is over or undervalued. It sounds almost too simple, but the idea caught on, and one of America's favorite burgers became an international economic symbol still used today. The 2010s, quality, cost, and technology. Americans started paying closer attention to food quality, fresher ingredients, more variety, digital ordering. At the same time, minimum wages rose in many states, along with rent, health care, and the cost of nearly every ingredient in a Big Mac. By the middle of the decade, the average price approached $5. I remember when it was under $1 became a common thing to say among friends and family. And they weren't exaggerating. Conversations about inflation often become personal for exactly this reason. They're not just about numbers. They're about memories and about comparing today's world with the one we grew up in. 2020 to today, the pandemic and beyond. The COVID-19 pandemic changed daily life almost overnight. Dining rooms closed, supply chains struggled, meat and packaging costs surged, and restaurants everywhere found it harder to find workers. Between 2020 and 2023, the price of a Big Mac climbed well beyond $5, and many Americans felt real sticker shock. Some adapted with mobile app discounts and loyalty rewards, trading Sunday newspaper coupons for savings on a smartphone. Even so, the sandwich itself stayed exactly the same. The special sauce tasted the same. The sesame bun looked the same. That first bite still carried the same memories. Family vacations, little league games, afternoons with friends. Today, in 2026, the average Big Mac in the United States costs just under $6, more than 13 times its original price in 1967. That number sounds incredible until you remember everything it represents. Nearly 60 years of rising wages, improvements in food safety, better transportation, and the countless people whose work brings that sandwich from farm to tray. More than a hamburger. Think about everything that's happened since 1967. Americans walked on the moon. The Berlin Wall fell. The internet connected the world. Streaming replaced video rental stores. Through all of it, the Big Mac quietly remained part of everyday life, shared after high school football games, bought by parents who are now grandparents themselves. So the next time you see the price of a Big Mac on the menu, remember, you're not just looking at the cost of a hamburger. You're looking at nearly 60 years of American history. Every generation has its own memories tied to one of the most recognizable sandwiches ever created. And perhaps that's exactly why it's lasted so long. Not simply because it tastes good, but because in one way or another, it reminds each of us of where we've been. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the decades. Until next time, take care and thanks for watching.